Hey, welcome back everybody. Things are looking pretty great. Wouldn't you agree? This is our cast iron tree grate. This is what we can get from the architectural salvage locally. This is $400 worth of cast iron. And there's a stack of them up there. I may use these again. I had hoped that because these are designed to be cut back as the tree grows, and there's all different kinds of, you can go crazy and spend several times that on decorator ones or designer ones. You could pay me to draw you something in CAD and burn it out a 1/2-inch plate or inch plate, whatever you want on a CNC. But this is the cost-effective way. This has got some Buffalo history. I don't think it was made here, but it's from Niagara Falls, city of Niagara Falls. They were around the trees there before a civil engineering project removed them, what have you. Anyway, this is a signature sort of detail to the whole deck itself. I had hoped that there'd be a circle that fit into the square, and I was going to cut, trim it back to that circle and actually do cast iron grate inlay that was circular on the outside. We didn't get that lucky, so a square is going to be what it is, and it is what it is. But the point is that it'll still look great. Now, our outer corner is curved, and again, so you can see this one we sketched in here, that was sketched in using the tree as a center, and so the circular grate and everything was sort of concentric, had a concentricity about it here. Since we're going with a square and we could add some more surface area, we bumped over, our lower deck footprint is over here now, and this is going to be complicated enough to swing around this corner, and in fact this actually may become less or a greater radius, basically, depending on what I'm able to get the wood to do. We'll do another video where we talk about resawing that joist into several thin layers and laying them in, doing curved layer after layer with the thin layers, laminating them up in place to get that to do that. I haven't done a lot of that, and you're better off with it wet. And steam bending is another thing you can get into. I really hope Rue didn't just escape through the gate. Well, we'll find her. What am I getting at? It's exciting. We got here today. What I did was I started with building the 2x4 ledger that this is going to sit onto, and so that is going to be a part of the deck framing, this 2x4 square. And then, I threw some angled pieces in here, some gussets to control it for square. I checked that it was square and installed those, so it is perfectly square and 4 feet on the outside with a butt and pass, screwed together with deck screws. And then I knew somewhere in here would be the elevation where we get away from that bugle kind of shape to the base of a tree trunk, and we get in closer to just the diameter of the trunk itself. So we have an elevation game to play here. We can probably lower it. I'd like this area of the lower deck to be what feels like one step up from the ground, but we don't want that ridge, we don't want that rim joist to actually touch the dirt. It's nice to have the more space the better. We're going to go with about 1 inch away if we can help it at the tightest spot up here, so it's high here and everything goes down and is lower over there. So everywhere away from here is downhill. So anyway, I'd like to, and we can dig this dirt down some, of course, but in the end of the day, the tightest that rim joist is going to be to the ground is about 1 inch. And then it'll open up a little bit more, but we will also add, because if you have 1 inch and you have a 7 1/4 2x8, and then you have a 1 inch deck board, so you got 8 1/4 total, plus the inch gap is 9 1/4. That's a pretty large step up for a lot of people, but it's the that's the most we can squeeze everything, basically. Best case scenario on any given location: ground, 1 inch, 7 1/4 2x8, 1 inch deck board. So we got a 9 1/4 scenario, and then we can add dirt over in that area, and it may not even be necessary all the way around, but we've got to find that elevation. So I put 4 stakes in the ground on the inside corners of this grate, and I did as much as I could to put them in exactly where we needed them, but I in fact had to drill into the roots of the tree and just pack those. They only went down 6 or 7 inches until they became tight. So I used a 1 inch auger bit that you normally use to put like a silcock into the ridge joist on a home, or the rim joist on a home. I went straight down into the tree root with it, and then these are like a pencil sharpener end on these stakes, so they found that hole, and I smashed them down into that hole as far as they would possibly go. So they're pretty rigid, end of the day. Now, say it's close to the inside, because if I pull them in tightly to all 4 of these, they're not plumb, and it's just a product of them being old and twisted, and I can't you know, these are things that you can do in the computer that you can't do in real life, suffice to say. So it was a good thought. It got me pretty close, but I will be shimming it, and I will be pulling the tape measure from it to, you know, this guy. I just stuck him on there, but he's, you know, essentially outlines the back surface of those posts. I checked him for straightness, but I need to copy the same dimension from him to here as well as from him to there to know that that's parallel to that. And then those corner braces control the squareness of this. And then I know this as an item out here in space is square to this deck, which means that when we come through here to this square with the deck boards on their layout as they come through here, there won't be a weird cope that I need to do over the length of this here. He'll be, you know, if anything, he'll fall right in a gap for a deck board. I may start here and fill in that direction, start there and fill in that direction. Who knows? But anyway, I don't want to betray the fact that he's a little twisted in the deck board, you know, in the application of the deck boards. So, that being said, that's going to be the most important thing. I've also got this coming through from the side of that post back there, through the side of this one and out here. I went left and right until it, you know, just touched that post and set that in the ground. And I can also check the dimension from here to there and there to there, which has got a little bit of give. So between the two things, the first one that I mentioned being the most important, I will get this dialed in where I want it, and then elevation will come up and down. The other thing about elevation is we want to divide out our stairs from this surface to that surface appropriately. I don't want to be squeezed to the point where I have to have 6-inch tall stairs, because to have one fewer step would make them wildly too tall. I'd like to be at 7.5 or so in terms of a step, the height of a step. So I'm going to play with the difference between this surface and this surface and divide that, and I'll move this thing down a little until I've got a nice amount of appropriately sized stairs. And it's all going to be variable until we work through it like I'm talking about now, in an order of importance. The last thing is I did my best to center this circle on the tree, and what I want is I don't really like, you know, the greater area, you know, greater gap there, narrower gap there. We're going to go that way as well, but side to side in this orientation is looking pretty good to me. If anything, we could go that way a tiny bit, but ideally, you imagine the tree is going to grow in circumference about its center equally, and so when the time comes to trim this thing back, I don't want to have to come and trim it back, take this circle off because we're touching it here, and then we end up with a 5 or a 6-inch gap in this spot there. It's where you lose the dog's ball if you're playing with the dog or anything else, you know, and it also looks bad. So we're going to look for a perfect center, you know, when we install it, and we'll just trust the tree. You hear that? We're going to trust you to grow evenly. And so, you know, we have the ability. So anyway, it's maybe a little counterintuitive if you don't do a lot of constructing, but we're going to start right here where everything comes together. It needs to look perfect, and then we'll build, you know, we'll complement it, and we'll come up and land against it with the rest of our construction out here. And that's going to be a best practice as far as I'm concerned. We'll be digging all these posts with the backhoe now that it's here, because we had a problem with square here, if you can believe it. We had to dig to one side of all these outer posts and move over an inch or so and then backfill them again. That was frustrating. I didn't realize that this addition isn't square to the house. I had checked it a little, but I didn't check it enough. And it's actually a little obtuse, and so all of the distances to these posts are the same. However, they were over this way too much. So we just took everything as an entire unit, and, you know, we dug out, like I said, I picked up in the middle with the skid steer and shimmied over that way. Everything went, and we just made sure that these were nice and plumb again and backfilled the holes. Just took us a couple days to get through that whole scenario. Anyway, we ended up here with the backhoe, so we're going to dig our post holes out here with the backhoe. And that's what's up with that. It's getting pretty exciting. Can't wait to see this framing. Can't wait to show you what I'm going to do here and try and get that to curve around the corner. And then we got joists to fill in and deck boards finally. And once we've got decks, I can go up on there with a ladder and finish around the door. And as far as the stairs, our stringers are just going to start on this beam, and they will there'll be joists in here like this, and their layout will just be to the one side of all the joist layouts, so the stringer will go right on by the joist and be, you know, through locked to it tightly right along, boom, 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 and that'll keep all the stringer layouts on 16 inches on center, and then we'll just have long 20-foot deck boards that go over all the way. And this line here is approximately where the stairs are gonna stop there, and then we'll have deck over to here, and obviously like that. So got to get back to this full steam, because we've got another whole deck to completely construct on a site this year. And I know he's waiting for me. I'm trying, I'm rushing, I'm hustling. All right, we'll see you.